Los Angeles, a city that never sleeps, where bright lights outshine even the stars, and where every person has a story to tell. In the heart of this bustling metropolis stood a luxurious high-rise apartment complex, home to Daniel Carter and Emily Walker, a couple that seemed perfect in every way. Their love story had begun like a fairy tale, full of passion, dreams, and the promise of forever. But as time passed, cracks started forming in their seemingly unbreakable bond. Daniel and Emily had met in college, both young, ambitious, and madly in love. Daniel was studying business, determined to build an empire, while Emily pursued interior design, dreaming of creating spaces that told stories. Their connection had been instant, one of those rare love stories that everyone envied. Emily had always admired Daniel's drive and dedication. He wasn't just another college boy with dreams. He had a plan. From late-night study sessions to weekend road trips, their love blossomed into something deep and unshakable. They promised each other that no matter what happened, they would always put their love first. After college, Daniel worked tirelessly to establish his company, Carter Enterprises, a high-end real estate firm that quickly gained recognition. Emily, equally passionate about her career, became a sought-after interior designer. Despite their busy schedules, they found time for each other, supporting and celebrating each other's successes. For years, it seemed like nothing could come between them. They traveled the world together, shared quiet Sunday mornings over coffee, and spent nights dreaming about their future. Marriage was always the plan, and when Daniel finally proposed during a romantic getaway in Paris, Emily had said yes without hesitation. But fairy tales rarely last forever. Success came at a cost. As Daniel's company grew, so did his responsibilities. Meetings, late-night calls, business trips. Slowly, his work started consuming him. Emily understood at first. She knew Daniel was building something big, something for their future. But as months turned into years, she began to feel the distance between them. Their dinners turned into silent meals where Daniel was too exhausted to talk. Their weekends, once filled with adventure, became just another workday for him. The man who had once made her feel like the center of his universe now seemed distracted, preoccupied, and absent, even when he was right beside her. Emily tried. She planned surprise dates, cooked his favorite meals, and even left him little notes in his office. But Daniel barely noticed. Every time she brought up how she felt, he brushed it off, saying, "Emily, I'm doing all of this for us. Just hold on a little longer." A little longer. But how long was she supposed to wait? The arrival of someone from the past one evening, after another lonely dinner, Emily decided to step out. She visited an art gallery, a place she had once loved but had abandoned in the chaos of her relationship. As she wandered through the exhibits, lost in the beauty of the paintings, a familiar voice called her name. Ryan Parker. An old friend from college, Ryan had always been the artistic, free-spirited type. Unlike Daniel, who thrived in the corporate world, Ryan had pursued his passion for painting and now managed one of the most prestigious galleries in the city. They hadn't spoken in years, but seeing him felt like stepping into a memory of who she used to be before life became so complicated. Ryan greeted her with his usual warm smile. "Emily Walker, it's been forever. How have you been?" At first, their conversation was casual, catching up on old times, laughing about college memories. But as the night went on, Emily found herself opening up about things she hadn't even admitted to herself. She spoke about how distant Daniel had become, how she felt like she was losing herself in the process. Ryan listened, not just politely, but genuinely. He didn't offer solutions or tell her what she wanted to hear. He simply understood. Before she left, Ryan said something that lingered in her mind long after she had returned home. "You deserve to feel loved, Emily, not just in words, but in actions." That night, as she lay in bed beside Daniel, who was days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. The space between Daniel and Emily had grown so wide that it felt like they were living separate lives under the same roof. The once effortless love between them had become strained, reduced to small conversations about schedules and responsibilities. Emily still tried. She made his favorite meals, left thoughtful notes on his desk, and even planned weekend getaways. But every time, Daniel had an excuse. "I have a meeting. This deal is important. I promise next weekend." She would sit across from him at the dining table, watching as he scrolled through emails instead of looking at her. She wondered if he even noticed the loneliness in her eyes, the way her fingers hesitated before reaching for his hand, only to pull back. One evening, Emily dressed up in a stunning emerald green dress, one she knew Daniel loved. She had made reservations at their favorite restaurant, hoping to remind him of what they used to be. But when she walked into his office, he barely glanced up. "Emily, can we do this another time? I'm in the middle of something big." Her heart sank. She swallowed the lump in her throat and forced a smile. "Of course, I understand." But she didn't. She didn't understand why the man who once made her feel like the most important person in the world now treated her like an afterthought. That night, as she lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling while Daniel worked late in his office, a thought crept into her mind. Is this how the rest of my life will be? A familiar face. Returns. A week later, Emily found herself walking through an art gallery, lost in thought. She had always loved art, but somewhere between trying to keep her relationship together and feeling invisible, she had forgotten about the things that once made her happy. That's when she heard a familiar voice. Emily Walker? No way. She turned around and saw Ryan Parker, an old college friend, someone who had once been a big part of her life. Ryan had changed in all the right ways, more mature, more confident, but still the same person who had always understood her without her needing to say much. They spent the next hour catching up. Ryan told her about his career as an art curator, his travels, and how he still painted in his free time. Emily found herself laughing, something she hadn't done in a while. At least, not like this. "So, how's life?" Ryan finally asked, his blue eyes filled with genuine curiosity. Emily hesitated. The truth was, she didn't know how to answer that anymore. "It's busy," she said instead. Ryan studied her for a moment before smiling softly. "You know, back in college, you used to light up when you talked about life. Do you still feel that way?" The question hit her harder than she expected. Did she still light up? Over the next few weeks, Emily and Ryan started meeting more often. Casual coffee hangouts, gallery visits, long conversations about art, dreams, and life. At first, it felt innocent. After all, Ryan was just an old friend, someone who made her feel seen again. But deep down, she knew. She knew that the way her heart raced when she received his texts, the way she smiled when he called, the way she looked forward to their time together. It was more than just friendship. Ryan never crossed any lines, but he didn't have to. The way he listened, the way he noticed things about her that Daniel no longer did, the way he reminded her of who she used to be, it was enough to make her question everything. And Daniel? He was still too busy to notice. One evening, after another failed attempt to spend time with Daniel, Emily found herself at Ryan's art studio. The space smelled like paint and old books, and for the first time in a long time, she felt at peace. Ryan handed her a brush. "Here, you used to love painting. Let's see if you still do." She hesitated, then dipped the brush into the colors. As she painted, she felt something awaken inside her, a version of herself she thought had disappeared. Ryan watched her, a small smile on his lips. "There she is," he whispered. Emily looked up, meeting his gaze. For the first time in years, she felt truly alive. Daniel's first doubts. Back at home, Daniel started noticing small changes. Emily was no longer waiting for him at dinner. She had started going out more, smiling at her phone when she thought he wasn't looking. One night, as he walked into the kitchen, he saw her humming to herself while making coffee. It was such a simple thing, but it hit him. She hadn't looked this happy in a long time. And the worst part? He wasn't the reason. For the first time, Daniel felt something unfamiliar. Fear. Fear that he was losing her. But he still didn't say anything. He convinced himself that Emily was just finding ways to stay busy. He believed that once things settled at work, he would fix everything. But what if it was already too late? A moment that changed everything. One night, Emily and Ryan attended an art event together. She had told Daniel about it, but he had barely acknowledged it, too caught up in his business deals. At the event, Emily felt a sense of belonging she hadn't felt in years. Surrounded by creativity, passion, and people who lived for the moment, she realized how much she had missed this world. Ryan, standing beside her, whispered, "You belong here, Emily." As the night went on, they ended up on the rooftop, looking at the city lights. The air between them was charged, filled with unspoken words. Emily turned to Ryan. "I don't know what I'm doing anymore." Ryan exhaled, running a hand through his hair. "Emily, I would never ask you to choose, but I will say this. You deserve to be happy." And in that moment, standing under the Los Angeles skyline, Emily realized something terrifying. For the first time, she wasn't sure if her happiness still included Daniel. Daniel finally realizes. A week later, Daniel finally tried. He planned a surprise dinner, cleared his schedule, and made an effort to show up for his wife. But when Emily walked into the house that evening, she looked surprised, almost guilty. "You didn't have to do this," she said softly, looking at the candlelit table. Daniel took her hand. "I wanted to. I miss you, Emily." For a second, he saw something flicker in her eyes, pain, hesitation, regret. But then she forced a smile and sat down. They talked, laughed a little, and for a brief moment it felt like old times. But as the night went on, Daniel could sense it. She was here, but her heart was somewhere else. And that's when he knew. Emily had already started slipping away from him. Daniel's last attempt to save their marriage. After the dinner, Daniel couldn't ignore the truth anymore. He was losing Emily. It wasn't just work that had pulled them apart. He had neglected her for too long, assuming she would always be there, waiting. Determined not to let her slip away, he decided to take a few days off from work. He planned a weekend getaway to Napa Valley, hoping to remind Emily of the love they once shared. Emily, surprised by his sudden effort, agreed to go, but deep down she was conflicted. As they drove through the scenic countryside, Daniel held her hand, something he hadn't done in years. "I know I've been distant, Em, but I'm here now. Let's fix this." She smiled weakly. "I want to believe that, Daniel. I really do." That night, under a sky full of stars, Daniel pulled her close. "Tell me what you need. I'll do anything." Emily hesitated. "I don't know if it's that simple anymore." Her words sent a chill through him. Was he too late? While Emily was away, Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that he was about to lose her. He had tried to respect her marriage, but the truth was he had fallen for her. When she returned from Napa, he waited for her at the art studio. The moment she walked in, he could see the confusion in her eyes. "How was it?" he asked. She sighed. "It was nice. He's trying." Ryan exhaled, running a hand through his hair. "But is it enough?" Emily looked away, struggling with the answer. Ryan took a deep breath. "Emily, I need to say this. I love you. I know it's complicated, and I never wanted to put you in this position, but I can't pretend anymore." Emily's heart pounded. She had always known there was something between them, but hearing it out loud made it real. She stepped back. "Ryan, I can't do this. I'm married." He nodded, pain flashing in his eyes. "I know, and I'm not asking you to leave him. I just needed you to know." Emily's world spun. She had spent so long feeling unwanted, and now 2 men were fighting for her love. But what did she want? Daniel's breaking point. That night, Daniel noticed Emily's distant expression. She sat on the couch, lost in thought, her phone buzzing with a message she quickly ignored. His gut told him everything he needed to know. He took a deep breath. "Emily? Is there someone else?" She froze. Her silence was louder than words. Daniel's hands clenched into fists. "Who is he?" Emily finally met his gaze, her voice trembling. "It's not what you think, Daniel. I never cheated. But yes, there's someone who makes me feel seen." The words cut deeper than any betrayal. Daniel stood, pacing the room. "So that's it? You just stopped loving me?" Emily's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know. I don't know when it happened. I just know that I feel like I lost myself in this marriage." Daniel's chest tightened. He wanted to fight, to scream, to beg. But what was the point if she wasn't sure anymore? "Do you love him?" he asked, barely above a whisper. Emily hesitated, then shook her head. "I don't know what I feel. I just know I don't want to feel empty anymore." A choice that changes everything. Daniel didn't sleep that night. He sat in his office, staring at the framed wedding photo on his desk. He remembered how happy they had been, how certain he was that she was the one. But love wasn't just about a wedding day. It was about showing up. Every day. And he had failed. By morning, he made a decision. Emily walked into the kitchen to find him sitting at the table, a cup of coffee in front of him. His eyes were tired, but there was a calmness in them. "I love you, Emily," he said softly, "but I don't want to hold on to you if you're not happy." Emily's breath hitched. "If you want to stay, I will fight for this. But if you're done, I won't force you." Tears slipped down her cheeks. "I don't want to hurt you, Daniel." "Then tell me what you want." Silence filled the room. And then Emily finally made her choice. The weight of Daniel's words pressed on Emily's chest. For years she had longed for him to truly see her, and now here he was, offering her a choice. She glanced at the man she had built a life with, remembering the love they once shared. Then she thought of Ryan, the man who had reminded her of the passion she had lost. Taking a deep breath, she finally spoke. "I want to stay, but I need things to change." Daniel's eyes searched hers. "I'll do whatever it takes." But Emily shook her head. "Not just for me. You need to want this too. I won't fight for a marriage that only one of us believes in." Rebuilding or letting go? Over the next few weeks, Daniel and Emily took small steps to rebuild their connection. They started having dinner together without distractions. Daniel made an effort to ask about her art, to listen, not just hear. But despite their efforts, something still felt off. One night, as they sat on the porch, Daniel turned to her. "Are we forcing this?" Emily swallowed hard. "I don't know." The painful truth settled between them. Sometimes, love wasn't enough. Ryan's goodbye. Meanwhile, Ryan had kept his distance. He respected Emily's decision, but couldn't deny the ache in his chest. One evening, she stopped by his studio. He looked up, surprised, but not entirely shocked. "I wanted to say goodbye," she said softly. Ryan nodded. "I figured this was coming." She smiled sadly. "You helped me see myself again, and I'll always be grateful for that." He stepped closer, searching her face. "Are you happy?" Emily hesitated before answering. "I don't know yet, but I need to find out." Ryan exhaled, then leaned in and pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead. "Take care, Emily." And with that, he let her go. Daniel and Emily's final test back home. Daniel had packed a small bag. Emily's heart pounded. "Where are you going?" He looked at her, love and sadness in his gaze. "I think we need time apart, not forever, just to figure out if we're really choosing each other or if we're just afraid to let go." Tears filled her eyes. "And if we decide we're better off apart?" Daniel stepped forward, cupping her face. "Then we'll walk away knowing we tried. But if we come back to each other, it'll be because we truly want to." As he walked out the door, Emily realized something. Love isn't just about holding on. Sometimes it's about knowing when to let go. The house felt different without Daniel. For the first time in years, Emily was truly alone, not just physically, but emotionally. No distractions, no obligations, just her and the weight of her thoughts. At first, the silence was deafening. She wandered through the house, fingers trailing over framed photographs and old memories. But soon, the silence became something else, an invitation to rediscover herself. She threw herself into painting again, not for work or obligation, but for the sheer love of it. Her brush danced over canvases, bringing to life emotions she had long suppressed. She started journaling, pouring her heart onto the pages. Through her own words, she began to see a pattern, a version of herself that had slowly disappeared over time. Not because of Daniel, not because of Ryan, but because she had forgotten to choose herself. Meanwhile, Daniel had his own reckoning. He stayed with his brother for a while, using the solitude to reflect. One night, as he sat by the window, he picked up his phone and scrolled through old pictures of him and Emily. Pictures from when they first met, their wedding, their early days of love. He realized something painful. He had always loved Emily, but somewhere along the way he had stopped showing it. He had taken her presence for granted, assuming she would always be there. For years he had been building his career, focusing on providing a good life. But what was the point of it all if the person he was building for no longer felt at home with him? It wasn't just Emily who needed to change. It was him too. Months passed, and one evening Emily found herself standing in front of their old house, the key in her hand. She wasn't sure if she was ready to return, but she knew she had to face Daniel one last time. Inside, Daniel was waiting. The moment their eyes met, the air between them crackled with unspoken emotions. "Have you figured out what you want?" Daniel asked. Emily took a deep breath. "Yes, I want happiness. I want love that feels alive, not just comfortable." Daniel nodded slowly. "And do you think we can give that to each other?" Emily hesitated. "That depends." "Have you figured out what you want?" Daniel stepped closer. "I want you, Emily, but not in the way I used to, not as a given, not as someone I assume will always be there. I want to choose you, every single day." Tears welled in her eyes. "And if it's too late?" Daniel reached out, his fingers brushing against hers. "Then I'll let you go, because I love you enough to want what's best for you." Emily closed her eyes, letting the weight of the moment settle in. And then, for the first time in years, Emily made a choice, not out of fear, not out of obligation, but out of love. She stepped forward and wrapped her arms around Daniel. "Then let's start over." Not as the people they were before, but as the people they had become. Two souls who had walked through fire and come out stronger, together. And this time, it wasn't about holding on. It was about truly choosing each other, every day,